Welcome to the deep dive. It's so great to have you with us today.
Yeah, really glad you're here listening.
So today I want you to start by just, imagining the end of the world.
Right.
But I want you to strip away all the flashy cinematic explosions we usually see in the movies.
No dramatic slow motion destruction of the Eiffel Tower or whatever.
Exactly. Take away the heroic last stands. Instead, I want you to imagine surviving the apocalypse, only to slowly realize that surviving might actually be the worst possible outcome.
Which is such a terrifying concept.
It really is. Imagine being trapped in a subterranean bunker, buried miles beneath this totally irradiated wasteland. You haven't seen the sun in years.
Just that claustrophobia alone is wow.
Right. You're breathing recycled air that always tastes faintly of like metallic dust. You're eating the synthetic paste just to keep your caloric intake just barely above the starvation line.
Barely enough to keep you functioning.
Yeah. And slowly, day by agonizing day, you realize that the radiation up above ground, that isn't the real monster.
No, not at all.
The real monster is human nature, just compressed into a concrete box.
It's the ultimate psychological pressure cooker. I mean, when you take a society and you just strip away all the physical space, all the natural resources, and probably most importantly, all the hope,
You get something really dark.
you're left with something incredibly raw. And historically speaking, when human beings are reduced to that level of raw baseline survival, the systems they build are just incredibly brutal.
Which perfectly sets up our mission for this deep dive. Today, we are unpacking Ariel Sullivan's incredibly intense, just deeply unsettling dystopian sci-fi novel, Beneath.
Such a heavy, heavy read.
Oh, absolutely. It's part of her larger Rebirth series. And we're going to use this text to really try and understand the psychological weight of survival.
Yeah, we're looking at the human element.
Right. We're going to explore the intricate, desperate dynamics of finding a found family in the middle of a compounding crisis and the terrifying realities of that subterranean claustrophobia you mentioned.
And just to give you a blueprint for how we are approaching this text today, it's crucial to understand that Beneath is actually a parallel novel to Sullivan's other massive bestseller, Conform.
Which a lot of people might already be familiar with.
Exactly. But if you look closely at the author's acknowledgments at the very back of the book, Sullivan reveals that Beneath was explicitly designed to show the dark, the messy, and the entirely overshadowed side of a dystopian society.
The stuff that usually gets glossed over.
Right. Authors sometimes use parallel novels to show us the actual gears of the machine, rather than just the shiny exterior. So this is the story of the people who fall through the cracks of a rigid system. It's about the people who do the literal dirty work in the dark.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the world building here is just phenomenal. But to understand how this environment breaks a person, we first have to understand the architecture of the box they're trapped in.
The setting is everything here.
Yeah, and this bunker is ironically named Haven, but I'm struggling to understand the logistics of it a bit. How exactly is this society structured?
Well, it's because the text mentions all these different colors and sectors, and I'm trying to wrap my head around how a massive population doesn't just, immediately descend into absolute chaos when they're buried underground like that.
That's a brilliant question, and it speaks to Sullivan's deep understanding of authoritarian architecture, honestly. I mean, Haven is a masterclass in authoritarian naming conventions.
We're calling it a haven when it's really a prison.
Exactly. It projects safety, but the reality is absolute suffocating control. Haven avoids chaos through absolute rigid compartmentalization.
Okay, so dividing people up.
Right. The bunker is completely isolated from the radioactive surface, an area they just refer to simply as the abyss. To manage the remaining population, society is strictly divided into 5 color-coded sectors based entirely on physical utility.
Okay, break those sectors down for us. What do these colors actually represent in their, day-to-day lives?
So it basically operates as a strict caste system. You have
Yeah.
the kitchens, the agricultural and food processing workers, and they wear green.
Makes sense. Then you have the force, which acts as the military, the police, and the scouting arm. They wear dark blue. The hospital ward personnel wear white. Sanitation and waste management, they wear black.
Okay, so that's 4.
And finally, you have expansion. These are the people literally swinging iron pickaxes into solid rock to dig out more dirt tunnels as the population shifts. They wear gray.
Wow. And it's not just a uniform, right? Sullivan introduces this concept of a health score that's tied to these color-coded ID bands.
Yes, a very crucial detail.
But how does that actually work mechanically? I mean, is it like a credit score, or is it more invasive than that?
Oh, it is vastly more invasive than a credit score. Sullivan uses the health score as a brutal form of currency. Your ID band isn't just a piece of plastic, it contains a biometric tracker.
So it's constantly monitoring them.
Exactly. Your worth as a human being in Haven is entirely dictated by your physical utility to the system. You're subjected to constant medical and physical evaluations.
And if you fail?
If your health score drops, maybe because you contracted an infection or you broke an arm working in the tunnels, or simply because you're getting older and your stamina is decreasing, you lose your value. And when you lose your value, you lose access to basic human needs.
That is just terrifyingly pragmatic. I mean, there is an early scene in the book that just gutted me, and it perfectly illustrates how cold this biometric economy really is.
Oh, I know the exact scene you're talking about.
Right. So alarms start blaring throughout the bunker to signal that a massive nuclear storm is raging up on the surface. And because of the seismic activity, everyone is sent into a strict lockdown in the tunnels.
They're just trapped in the hallways.
Yeah. And because of the lockdown, the supply chains within the bunker just completely halt. So food is strictly rationed based on immediate inventory.
It becomes a pure numbers game.
Exactly. The kitchens decree that only the very young or the elderly will eat that night.
And we witness this scene through the eyes of our protagonist, Sasha Cadell. She's 23 years old, and she's perfectly healthy.
Yeah.
She watches this little girl, maybe 3 or 4 years old, wearing a green ID band. That little girl's going to get a ration. And Sasha just simply accepts that she, a young adult with a high health score, will just have to starve that night.
Her stomach is like physically protesting. The hunger is this visceral pain.
But her mind entirely accepts the logic of the machine.
It's like being trapped in a hyper-competitive corporate hierarchy, but the stakes are literally existential.
Yeah, it's life or death.
Instead of missing a promotion or getting a bad performance review, a drop in your metrics means you literally starve to death in a concrete hallway.
It's chilling.
But I have to push back on the very concept of this bunker. Like, why did humanity build this specific system? Was this really the only mathematical way to save a large group of humans with finite resources? Or is this architecture designed entirely from the ground up just to control the survivors?
It's a really dark thought.
It feels almost too perfectly rigged, you know?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, we really have to look at how authoritarianism functions in the real world, historically speaking.
Okay.
Authoritarianism always thrives in a vacuum of resources. When people are terrified, when they are trapped, and when they are starving, they will willingly trade their autonomy for the promise of a single meal.
Just to survive the night.
Right. So the system in Haven isn't broken. It is functioning exactly as it was designed to function. It uses engineered scarcity as a weapon to maintain absolute obedience.
So the health score.
The health score isn't a medical tool designed to keep people well. It's a leash. It's designed to keep them compliant.
Wow. And a system that efficient doesn't just manage people, it grinds them down.
Absolutely grinds them to dust.
That rigid, soul-crushing environment is just the perfect incubator for profound trauma, which leads us to the most damaged gear in this entire machine. Our protagonist, Sasha.
She really is the product of her environment.
She is entirely a product of it. She has basically absorbed the misery of Haven into her very identity at this point.
Sasha Cadell is a devastating character study. To understand her current state, we really have to look at her past.
Right, before the bunker.
Exactly. When the apocalyptic war started, she was 15 years old. She remembers the end of the world happening on a completely random Monday.
I remember that detail.
The text notes that she was dressed for school, wearing this pink bow in her hair, and she was actively complaining to her mother about a math exam she desperately didn't want to take. And then the news hit, the bombs fell, and her entire reality fractured permanently.
I love that Sullivan included the detail of the pink bow in the math test. Psychologically, it highlights how trauma cements these trivial, mundane details into our brains forever.
It anchors the memory.
It's that sharp contrast between a math test and the absolute obliteration of the globe. But fast forward to the present, she's now 23, and for the last 5 years, she has been assigned to the hospital ward.
But not doing normal medical stuff.
Right. She wasn't acting as a surgeon or a traditional nurse. She spent 5 years just sitting with the dying.
And she was assigned this role because of a biological anomaly. No matter what unknown viruses, severe skin diseases, or radiation-induced infections the people of Haven brought into the ward, Sasha just never caught them.
Never got sick once.
Her health score remained flawlessly perfect. So the authoritarian system utilized her perfect immunity in the most macabre way possible by making her the permanent companion to the hopeless cases.
The ones they gave up on.
The people who were highly contagious, the people whose entire families had already died, the people who were placed in strict quarantine to die completely alone. Sasha was the one who sat with them.
Wait, I want to pause on that. A biological anomaly. In a sci-fi context, that usually means superpowers or, like, magic blood.
Right, the chosen one trope.
Exactly. But Sullivan grounds this in something much darker and more realistic.
Yeah.
How does her immunity actually work mechanically within the logic of this world?
It's a fascinating detail because, as you noted, it's not magic at all. Medically speaking, in heavily isolated populations like an underground bunker, you sometimes see unique adaptive immune responses. The text implies that Sasha's immune system is just incredibly hyperreactive. It adapts to viral shedding almost instantly. But the tragedy of this is that her physical immunity offers zero protection for her psychological state.
Exactly. The people of Haven literally nicknamed her Death's Angel.
Such a heavy burden.
She sat with a 2-year-old boy, holding his hand until he passed. She sat with an elderly man whose body was covered in this horrific contagious skin disease just so she could memorize his final message to pass on to his wife. It is just one never-ending procession of death.
And a psychological toll of that reality is just staggering. We really have to consider what psychologists call compassion fatigue, but taken to an apocalyptic extreme here.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Just to define that for a moment. Compassion fatigue is a recognized neurological and psychological condition. We see it in real-world ICU nurses, trauma surgeons, first responders.
It's burnout on steroids?
It's not just being tired. It is the actual depletion of the brain's empathy centers. The amygdala gets so overloaded by constant exposure to the trauma of others that it essentially trips a circuit breaker to protect the host organism.
Wow.
Sasha is experiencing terminal compassion fatigue.
And compounding that fatigue is her own intense survivor's guilt. I mean, she lost her own parents during the initial descent into the bunker, and she lost her younger siblings, Lara and Eli.
Right, which she blames herself for.
Completely. She feels that she sacrificed her own emotional core, her own humanity, to try and keep her siblings alive during the chaos of the war, only to fail anyway. She describes feeling like she's carrying this internal beast of anger and grief inside her chest.
Which brings her to an absolute breaking point. After 5 years of acting as the Grim Reaper's waiting room attendant, she demands to be reassigned to expansion.
The dirt tunnels.
She willingly puts on a gray band, grabs a heavy iron pickaxe, and swings it at solid dirt walls for 14 hours a day. She intentionally seeks out the most mindless, physically grueling, exhausting labor possible.
Have you ever been so overwhelmed by grief or stress or just the demands of your life that you wanted to do mindless manual labor until your brain literally shuts off?
It's a very real feeling.
Keep that feeling in mind because Sasha takes it to the absolute extreme. The text says she strikes the dirt relentlessly until the rest of the world quiets. It's this monotonous, rhythmic existence.
She has retreated completely inward. She is using the physical pain of the labor to drown out the psychological pain of her memories.
And we see exactly how detached she has become in this harrowing scene in the dirt tunnels. It's during another lockdown, and she gets cornered by 3 men from Sanitation Tate, Chuck, and Terrence.
A really hard scene to read.
Very hard. They clearly intend to assault her. And what's chilling is that Sasha doesn't panic. She doesn't scream for help. Her heart rate barely even spikes.
She's just dead inside at this point.
With lethal, terrifying efficiency, she draws 2 knives. She buries one deep into Chuck's thigh, causing massive arterial bleeding, and holds the other directly to Tate's crotch while calmly pointing a stolen pistol at the 3rd man.
The biomechanics of that scene are crucial to understand her character. She even tells Tate, "I'd go to the ward to remove that knife, or he might bleed out in 3 minutes." Yeah. Because of her years in the hospital, she knows exactly the anatomy of the human body. She knows exactly where to strike to cause maximum debilitating damage without causing instant death.
It's so clinical.
It's cold, it's highly calculated, and it shows an utter detachment from the sanctity of human life. In her internal monologue, she actually knows that she should have just killed them and buried them in the dirt to be done with the inconvenience.
It's chilling. So I have to ask you, looking at this behavior, is Sasha's move to expansion and her violent attachment a form of self-punishment for failing her siblings? Like she believes she deserves to suffer in the dirt, or is it an extreme form of self-preservation?
Honestly, it is a complex amalgamation of both. By numbing herself with physical exhaustion, she is starving the beast of her trauma. She's depriving herself of the mental bandwidth required to remember Lara and Eli.
Just keeping her brain too tired to think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's also a stark manifestation of that compassion fatigue we discussed. She spent half a decade absorbing the final terrors and agonizing breaths of dying strangers. Her empathy reserves aren't just low, they're entirely bankrupt.
She just can't care anymore.
She can no longer bear to be the arbiter of who lives and who dies. She just wants to hit a wall of dirt and exist as a machine.
The Haven is a system built purely on utility, and a system that efficient doesn't let a highly capable, lethal tool just rust in the dirt. Sasha's carefully constructed isolation is violently interrupted by the military faction of Haven.
She is discovered by Commander Tristian Hayes, whose military call sign is Hades. He's a leader of a highly specialized force team known as Unit 7.
The dark blue sector.
Right. Tristian desperately needs a field medic because he recently lost his previous one, a woman named Lily, under some very classified circumstances. So Tristian leverages his rank, pulls Sasha out of expansion, and effectively drafts her into his unit.
And just like that, completely against her will, Sasha is dragged out of her gray, solitary existence and thrown into a vibrant, tightly knit found family.
The interpersonal dynamics of Unit 7 really form the emotional core of the narrative. You have Levi, whose call sign is Raven, Damien, whose call sign is Sunshine,
Love Damien.
and you have Rumi, Isla, Patrick, and Ingrid. Sullivan brilliantly uses these supporting characters as mirrors, reflecting different facets of Sasha's own trauma.
How so?
Well, they are all living in the exact same post-apocalyptic hellscape. They have all lost everything.
Okay.
But the crucial difference is that unlike Sasha, who chose complete isolation, this unit chose connection.
I was actually thinking about how to describe this dynamic earlier. It's not like Tristian is just, adopting a stray dog to rehabilitate it. That metaphor is way too light for the severe PTSD we're dealing with here.
Yeah, that doesn't capture the intensity at all.
It feels more like Unit 7 is a pressure valve in a submarine. They are this highly localized, heavily fortified little bubble where the crushing external weight of Haven is equalized, just enough to keep their psychological hulls from imploding. They chose each other to survive the pressure.
That is a phenomenal analogy because the pressure on each of them is immense.
Yes.
They're all carrying these massive, invisible scars.
Oh, absolutely.
Take Damien, for example. He's the joker of the group, literally called Sunshine. He deflects everything with humor. But later we learn his heartbreaking backstory, which serves as a masterclass on the cost of concealing vulnerability in a hyper-competitive environment.
So tragic.
Before he ever reached Haven, he was traveling across the wasteland with his cousins. A heavy structural beam fell and completely crushed his ankle. And his own family, his blood relatives, calculated the math of survival. They decided he was a liability, one less mouth to feed, and they abandoned him under the beam.
It is horrific to even imagine.
To survive, Damien had to physically pry his own crushed joint apart to escape the weight of the beam. He built a rudimentary makeshift brace and walked on a shattered leg for a month to reach the bunker.
And the mental fortitude that takes is insane.
But the real tragedy happens when he arrives. When he got to Haven, he hid the injury. He lied to the medical staff and pushed through agonizing pain during his physical evaluations.
Because of the health score.
He did this because he knew, without a doubt, that if they saw his ruined ankle, his health score would plummet. He would be deemed a useless burden, and he would be cast down into sanitation, or just left to die.
It really highlights how the health score forces people to internalize their suffering. You can't ask for help, ever. And then you have Rumi, who is the quiet, analytical observer of the group.
She's fascinating.
She instigates these psychological games during their long night shifts in the guard shacks, a game she calls the witching hour. She forces the unit to answer these incredibly deep, vulnerable questions of the dark. Questions like, what is your biggest regret?
Rumi's witching hour isn't just a game to pass the time. It is a vital mechanism for communal processing.
Right, like group therapy almost.
Psychologically, trauma thrives in silence and shame. By forcing the unit to verbalize their regrets and their fears out loud, for instance, Ingrid admits her biggest regret is letting fear dictate her choices. Rumi is ensuring that the psychological wounds of the unit are exposed to the air.
They can't let it fester.
They process their pain communally rather than leaving it to fester in the dark, which is exactly what Sasha's been doing for years.
Which brings us to the dynamic between Sasha and Commander Tristian Hayes. Because Tristian isn't just a tactical commander, he's incredibly perceptive emotionally.
He sees right through her.
He really does. He sees right through Sasha's cold death's angel armor. He constantly challenges her. He backs her into corners conversationally, asking her, "What do you want?"
He won't let her hide.
He is actively, aggressively trying to pull her back to her humanity, which sparks this incredibly intense, complicated, and tension-filled romantic connection between them.
Tristian refuses to let her stay numb. He tells her in a very heated moment, "I want you to give a shit. About anything. About Haven. About them. About yourself."
Such a great line.
He recognizes that her apathy is a tactical shield, and he is determined to dismantle it. Not because he wants to break her, but because he sees her intrinsic value, not just as a medic with a perfect health score, but as a human being deserving of connection.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. What's fascinating here is the heavy mythological resonance Sullivan weaves into their identities.
Oh yes, Sullivan uses call signs to heavily foreshadow character arcs.
So good.
Tristian's call sign is Hades, the ancient Greek ruler of the underworld. He earned that title because of his staggering body count and tactical lethality during the war.
Makes sense for a military commander.
Sasha is initially given the call sign Beast, reflecting the internal trauma she feels she is carrying. But as she integrates with the unit, she later adopts the call sign Phoenix.
Rebirth.
Exactly. So you have Hades and the Phoenix, a god of death and a mythological creature of resurrection, both trying to find rebirth in a literal subterranean underworld.
It's so poetic. But the problem with building a pressure valve is that eventually it's going to get tested in the deep water. This newfound fragile trust, this tentative healing Sasha's finally experiencing, is immediately put to the ultimate test.
Because they can't just stay in the bunker forever.
Right, because Unit 7 isn't just hanging out in the bunker playing therapy games. They are the Force. They are Force out of Haven and up into the irradiated wasteland.
They are sent on a highly classified mission to the surface, into the abyss, and Sullivan's description of the wasteland is stark. It is a barren, gray terrain, completely decimated by nuclear fallout.
Nothing survives up there.
The soil is literally vitrified glass in places. Their objective is to locate a hidden outpost that allegedly contains crucial medical and mechanical supplies needed to keep Haven operational.
But the surface is a minefield. There are traps everywhere. And here is the terrifying detail that completely shifts the narrative. The traps are active.
Which changes everything.
Which means someone or something is regularly resetting them.
This detail introduces a massive layer of paranoia to the story. It highlights the central thematic tension of the novel, the conflict between preserving the system, following Haven's strict operational rules, and preserving human life.
This tension explodes in a catastrophic, visceral moment. They are navigating the gray wasteland, and Levi steps wrong. He triggers a concealed trap. Giant, rusted metal claws erupt from the earth with massive pneumatic force.
It happens so fast.
Levi realizes what is happening a split second before Sasha does, and he violently shoves her out of the way.
Yeah.
But the claws catch him. His shoulder is ripped open deep into the muscle, tearing all the way down to the bone.
It is a devastating, life-threatening injury. Sasha immediately kicks into her deeply ingrained medic mode, but she realizes something much worse is happening. Levi is bleeding internally. The dark bruising on his abdomen is spreading rapidly. Medically speaking, he is going into hypovolemic shock. His blood volume is dropping so fast his organs are going to fail.
And they're nowhere near help.
They are hours away from the bunker, they are exposed to ambient radiation, and he is actively dying in the dirt.
So Sasha has to make a choice, and she chooses to break every single medical protocol she has ever been taught in Haven.
She goes completely rogue.
She performs a desperate, completely improvised field blood transfusion right there on the radioactive floor of the wasteland. She rips 5E lines from her medical kit, calculates blood types from memory, and has Rumi and Damien act as live, direct blood donors.
Just unbelievable.
She hooks them up arm to arm to keep Levi's heart pumping long enough to literally carry his body back to the bunker doors.
The medical reality of performing a field transfusion without proper coagulation monitoring or sterilization is incredibly dangerous, but it underscores her desperation.
She has to try.
However, here is where the brilliance of Sullivan's world building comes roaring back. Getting Levi's heart to beat until they reach Haven is only half the battle.
Because of the rules.
If she brings him back into the hospital with a permanently ruined arm and massive internal trauma, his biometric health score will absolutely tank. He will be instantly stripped of his rank in the force, cast down to the lowest gray sector, and his life as he knows it will be effectively over.
Exactly. So I want to pose a provocative question because this really challenged me while reading. If you were Sasha, would you risk the entire unit's safety, slowing everybody down in a radioactive wasteland where active traps are being reset, to save one person, knowing that bringing a severely injured man back to Haven means his health score plummets and ruins his life anyway?
It's a horrible choice to have to make.
Is it almost selfish to save him just so you don't have to watch another person die?
It is the ultimate utilitarian dilemma, and it forces the reader to confront their own moral boundaries. The system of Haven dictates that you leave him.
Cut your losses.
The system's mathematical logic says a broken tool is useless and endangers the functioning tools. But this becomes Sasha's defining moral choice. She refuses the logic of the machine.
She finally cares.
She refuses to let death take another person in front of her. She chooses the value of the individual over the efficiency of the system. And furthermore, she decides to subvert the system entirely.
How does she do that once they get back?
Well, when they finally drag Levi back into the bunker, she uses her formidable former authority as Death's angel in the ward. The medical staff are terrified of her.
They remember her from before.
She uses that fear to physically falsify Levi's medical charts. She patches him up secretly, lies on the official reports about the extent of his muscular damage, and illegally preserves his biometric health score.
It's an incredible moment. She fundamentally subverts the dystopian economy. She stands in the medical bay and lies directly to the doctors, basically stating through her actions that they aren't gods, and a computer algorithm shouldn't decide who gets medical care. It's her first massive act of systemic rebellion.
It truly is. She realizes that her duty isn't to the rigid rules of Haven. Her duty is to life itself. It's the moment the apathy burns away and the phoenix truly begins to rise.
But breaking the rules in the wasteland is one thing. Bringing that rebellion back into the bunker is another. Sasha's falsification of the health score is just a microcosm of a much larger, darker rot that is festering inside Haven's central leadership.
Oh, things get so much worse. Upon returning to the bunker, Unit 7 realizes that the fragile ecosystem of Haven is rapidly falling apart. A mysterious, deadly respiratory illness is sweeping through the ventilation tunnels.
Which is terrifying in a bunker.
The epidemiology of a virus in a closed-loop bunker system is terrifying. There's nowhere for the air to go. The outbreak started in the kitchens, and it is highly contagious.
And it spreads fast.
It begins claiming lives rapidly, including threatening Ingrid's younger sister, Bretta, and an innocent little girl that Sasha tries to secretly treat with stolen antibiotics.
And while the general population is panicking, coughing, and dying, Haven's supreme leader, Lissa Burden, is wielding absolute sadistic power.
At this point, Sullivan shifts the narrative masterfully from a survival story into a claustrophobic political thriller. Rumi, the quiet observer who analyzes everything, discovers a massive, chilling, bureaucratic discrepancy.
Rumi always notices the details.
She cross-references the official files.
Right.
She notices that people who are officially listed on the death roll from the hospital ward, people who supposedly died of the new illness, are somehow showing up on the classified guard shack entry logs for the tunnels leading to the surface.
So let's unpack that. What does that actually mean?
It means the leaders of Haven are running a ghost payroll, but with human lives. They are legally declaring healthy people dead, erasing their biometric data from the main servers so they can secretly move them outside the bunker for unknown, clandestine purposes on the surface.
It's like finding out the CEO of your company isn't just embezzling money, but actively faking employee deaths to run a black ops project. It is deeply sinister.
And Lissa Burden is completely unhinged in her pursuit of control.
Through her surveillance network, she discovers that Sasha faked Levi's health score.
And Burden's retaliation is a masterclass in psychological warfare. She doesn't just execute Sasha, which would make her a martyr. Instead, she revokes Unit 7's surface privileges completely.
Just locks them in?
She traps them underground and forces them to stand guard and watch other, lesser-trained units go out on supply missions. She explicitly tells Tristian she is doing this to breed resentment within the unit.
She wants to turn them against each other.
She wants Levi to feel guilty. She wants the unit to turn on Sasha for costing them their status. And ultimately, she wants to break Tristian's spirit by showing him he cannot protect his people.
Burden has this terrifying, quiet scene with Tristian and Sasha. She stands there, holding a data pad, and reads out Sasha's official ID number, ID 1323324. And with a few casual keystrokes, she legally erases Sasha's entire existence.
With a single button press.
She strips her of her medical license, kicks her out of the force, and assigns her back to expansion to swing a pickaxe until she dies. She deletes her identity.
This raises an important question, right, Hal? How do you fight an enemy that controls the very air you breathe, the food you are allowed to eat, and the digital numbers that define your legal existence?
You almost can't.
Burden represents the ultimate corruption of survival. She isn't trying to save humanity from the apocalypse. She is actively using the apocalypse as an excuse to play God.
She loves the power.
She tells Tristian that her biggest threat is in her bed, meaning she views every human relationship purely as a vector for power dynamics and leverage. She is a true psychopath, operating perfectly within a closed ecosystem.
So what does this all mean? Unit 7 is cornered. They are stripped of their ranks. They are watching a mysterious engineered illness ravage the innocent people they care about, and they are facing a slow, bureaucratic death.
They have nothing left to lose.
When the system is engineered to kill you, the only logical response is to break the system. Unit 7 decides they are done playing by Haven's rigged rules.
Which leads directly to the explosive climax of the text. Tristian, Levi, Sasha, and the rest of the unit plan a massive, desperate mutiny.
It's their only option.
They know from their surface missions that Haven is fundamentally running out of resources, that the illness might be an engineered distraction to cull the population, and that Burden is hiding something massive on the surface with her ghost citizens.
They need a distraction big enough to allow them to escape the heavily guarded bunker. And this is where Rumi takes center stage with a horrifyingly pragmatic act.
I was shocked when I read this part.
To force the leader's hands, pull the guards away from the exits, and create absolute panic, Rumi sneaks into the mechanical bay and deliberately punctures Haven's primary oxygen tanks.
It is a stunning, breathtaking escalation. While the alarms blare and the oxygen pressure drops, the unit escapes through a secret rudimentary earth tunnel.
Digging their way out.
This was a tunnel being illegally dug by expansion workers off the grid, under the orders of another corrupt leader. But we have to pause and examine the staggering moral ambiguity of Rumi's action here.
Yes, let's talk about that.
She admits to Sasha that her hands are permanently dirty now. Puncturing those oxygen tanks in a sealed subterranean bunker could easily kill innocent people.
Hold on, let me push back on this because I really struggled with this while reading the book. Puncturing the main oxygen tanks of a bunker, isn't that literal terrorism?
It fixed the definition.
Even if Unit 7 are the good guys fighting a corrupt dictator, they are actively, intentionally jeopardizing the air supply of the kitchen workers, the sick patients in the ward, the children. How can we possibly root for them as protagonists after that?
Your shock is entirely validated, and it's exactly the discomfort Sullivan wants the reader to feel. The text is forcing us to grapple with the grim reality of asymmetrical warfare.
Okay, asymmetrical warfare.
In real-world context, asymmetrical warfare happens when a weaker force cannot win a conventional battle against a heavily armed power. Unit 7 can't just march up to Burden's guards and arrest her.
Right, they'd be slaughtered.
So they have to use unconventional, highly destructive tactics that target the enemy's infrastructure.
So the end justifies the means.
The theme of sacrificing the few for the many is violently flipped on its head. Rumi calculates a brutal mathematical equation. If they don't break out and find the hidden supplies on the surface to expose Braden, everyone in Haven will slowly suffocate or starve in a matter of months anyway.
It's a lose-lose situation.
To defeat a monster like Burden, who uses the air supply as a weapon of compliance, Unit 7 had to become dangerous themselves. They had to be willing to break the ecosystem to save the people trapped inside it.
They literally embody Sasha's call sign. They are the Phoenix. They are setting the structure of Haven on fire, burning it down, with the desperate, violent hope that humanity can rise from its ashes.
As they navigate these claustrophobic, collapsing, secret Earth tunnels, they run into an intense armed confrontation with Kaleo.
Oh, Kaleo.
Kaleo is a rival force commander who had been sleeping with Burden, acting as her enforcer. But in a massive narrative twist, Kaleo lowers his weapon and reveals he isn't Burden's lapdog.
Got a total shock.
He is a double agent. He's been sleeping with Burden to get close to her command codes. He proves his loyalty to Tristian by revealing new tech chips he stole from Burden's quarters chips that actually broadcast a signal to disarm the surface traps.
It completely recontextualizes everything. The traps weren't just random leftover defenses. They were an active perimeter Burden was maintaining.
To keep people inside.
And then, using Kleos chips, they finally make it out into the abyss and locate the hidden underground facility. And this leads us to the massive, mind-bending cliffhanger that ends the book.
The ending is wild.
Sasha stumbles away from the group and finds a secure room deep in the facility. And the room is filled with high-tech humming glass pods.
The visual Sullivan paints here is just haunting. Rows and rows of immaculate glowing glass pods buried beneath a dead, irradiated world.
Sasha walks up to one of the pods. She sees condensation and steam swirling inside the glass. And through the frost, she clearly sees a woman. A living, breathing woman suspended inside the pod. But then there's a loud noise down the hall. Sasha gets startled and looks away for a single second, and when she looks back, the pod is entirely empty. The woman is just gone.
It is a masterful, maddening cliffhanger. It completely shatters the established reality of the novel. It implies that everything the characters and the reader know about the apocalyptic war, the radiation, and the necessity of the bunker might be a complete fabrication.
Are the pods a method of preservation? A simulation?
The cloning facility for the ghost payroll, we simply don't know yet.
Which brings us to the synthesis of this incredible deep dive. Beneath takes the classic, almost tired trope of dystopian survival and completely elevates it into an intimate, agonizing examination of psychological trauma.
It's so much more than just a survival story.
It constantly asks the reader, what does it cost to survive? It explores the complex healing power of a found family, and it exposes the terrifying, violent lengths authoritarian structures will go to in order to maintain control over human lives.
As we reflect on all of this, I want to leave you, the listener, with a specific quote from Levi. During a moment in the tunnels, when Sasha is at her absolute lowest, drowning in her survivor's guilt, Levi looks at her and says, "It's never too late to burn it all down and rise from your ashes."
I love that quote.
This quote resonates far beyond a fictional nuclear apocalypse. It applies to the structures in our own lives. Whether you are navigating a deeply toxic workplace that treats you like a metric, trying to find the strength to leave a broken relationship, or suffocating under the heavy weight of personal grief.
Yeah.
Sometimes the psychological structures and habits we build to survive our trauma end up becoming the very bunkers that trap us in the dark. And sometimes you have to find the radical courage to burn those structures down in order to find the sky again.
That is incredibly powerful. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder. Think about those rusted metal claws in the wasteland that magically reset themselves.
The traps.
Think about the secret dirt tunnels, the falsified death rolls, the manipulated health scores, and that mysterious woman disappearing from the glowing glass pod.
So many questions.
What if the apocalypse above ground wasn't actually the end of the world, but a highly orchestrated, controlled experiment? What if the real enemy isn't the radiation outside, but the people who built the bunker in the first place? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the abyss. Keep questioning what lies beneath.